of those living in this community. Teach us all to examine our own hearts by your Holy Spirit. Root out any selfish, misguided inclinations that would lead to the detriment of those we serve. Pour out your holy oil of unity so that we may work together in true cooperation, listening to one another, understanding the viewpoints of others. We continue to live in difficult days with many issues that leave our communities and nation bitterly divided. There are so many subtle yet impactful changes to our culture and everyday life. We ask that you would keep each of us strong in our faith, trusting in your unchanging promises. You, O God, are in control of all history and always have been, working out your purposes in the interest of your own people who look to you. Nothing ever surprises you, Heavenly Father. Nothing ever catches you off guard. May we find peace and security in your sure and certain promises of a new heaven and a new earth, your gift to us through the finished work of the crucified, risen, and ascended Lord Jesus Christ. Save us from simply setting our hearts on the things of this fleeting life, as if this was all there is. May we seek first your everlasting kingdom and your righteousness in all that we say and do. Lord, bless all those who serve us so faithfully in this room as commissioners. Bless all who have dedicated their lives to the service of others. This we ask through the powerful name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
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 Thanks, Jim. Rise for the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Carrie.
Commissioner LaHaye.
Here.
Commissioner Osmer. Commissioner Lalone. Here. Commissioner Fournier. Here. Commissioner Francisco.
Here.
Commissioner Konashevsky.
Here.
Commissioner Kozlowski.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here. Okay, we have a public comment, 3-minute limit per person. When you come up,
Adopt the agenda.
we got to adopt agenda too, Rex, right?
Yep.
Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I'd like to add something.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to add Alpena insurance.
Under unfinished business. Okay, anybody else? Now that entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Commissioner LaHaye, support
I'll support.
by Commissioner Lalone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we have public comment. We have come forward one at a time, speak at the podium, put your name and your address. You have a 3-minute time limit. So if we have anybody here for public comment, please come forward.
Michael Santella, 7010 Leak Road. I'm sure you realize by now at the last full board meeting, a representative for Friends of Alpena County Animal Control misspoke, claiming approximately 200 petition signatures were submitted to you, and in fact, the number was 299. In your packet today, you will find an additional 165 signatures, bringing the total number of petition signatures to 464 Alpena residents asking you to continue to fund the Alpena County Animal Control Shelter as is and not contract out any functions. We are very disturbed at the Courts and Public Safety meeting on June 19, 2023, when discussing the 233 survey results, there were 0 mentions of the petition signatures received, even though the petition signatures are double the survey response. At the last full board meeting, we also brought to your attention that the survey generated by County Administrator Hannah was obviously skewed to achieve a desired result. After spending over $850 on FOIA requests, the results obtained already painted a clear picture as to why we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. County Administrator Hannah and Commissioner Kozlowski have told us repeatedly that they've never heard anyone say they wanted to close down the animal control shelter. No decision has been made, and that the public will have ample opportunity to be involved. According to one email dated nearly a year ago, July 10th, 2022, Mary Catherine Hanna told the head of the Huron Humane Society that she would like to close down, shutter, the Alpena animal control shelter. You have attachment. In another email from County Administrator Hanna to the Huron Humane Society dated November 11, 2022, Hanna outlines the contractual requirements she expects from the Huron Humane Society for animal control shelter services. You also have an attachment. Finally, in another email dated February 6, 2023, Mary Catherine Hanna was asking whether she should send the animal control service agreement to Cindy Johnson at Huron Humane Society for final review before or after the meeting with Animal Control Officer Deputy Reed, and telling her what they were going to do. We're holding on to this email for the moment as it coincides more aptly with another issue soon to be released. What we know now is that there are people in the county level who want to close down the animal control shelter no matter what they're saying in public. They have been making decisions behind closed doors, and it looks like they were not planning to tell the public until it was already done. And we, the people of Alpena County, had no say in how the county is run. Our concerns are obviously justified, and the actions we are uncovering do not in any way reflect the wishes of the residents of Alpena County. We elected you, commissioners, to represent our will, and we do not find what we are uncovering.
You can also come back at the end of the meeting, public comment.
Julie Uribe, 1023 South Second. May I defer to Mike Santella?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Was I? Except on a supplemental. I only had a little bit left too.
Okay, yes.
We'd also like to commend Sheriff Smith for putting the brakes on what appears to be a year-long concerted effort to close down the Alpena County Animal Control Shelter. Thank you for your time this evening. Michael Santella, and I am president of the Friends of Alpena Animal Control.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Luann Benak, 2133 First Avenue. I do not believe the community was well enough informed about the survey. This is about animal control, even though efforts were made to get the word out to people. People I spoke with knew nothing about it. I feel, as well as anyone I've spoken with, that animal control and Deputy Reed needs to remain in place. Our community is blessed to have an award-winning animal control officer and one that other counties want to model theirs after. You know she is highly trained, successful, compassionate, and committed. Her success rate is undeniable. Why would you consider changing a system that is working exceptionally well and a service our community clearly has a great need for? Based on public documents, they show it would be much more cost-effective to leave animal control in place rather than outsource it. The true numbers do not lie. The community is behind her, and it shows she is supported by the fundraising and clinics that are offered, which greatly offsets the costs. There are emails coming to light that, in my opinion, show efforts are being made to disclude Michelle and the community from this process to some degree. It appears to me as if animal control was outsourced to Huron Humane Society or an outside source. The cost of vetting and other expenses will fall on the county. Plus, the Huron Humane Society facility would need expansion relying on county funds. I feel it would end up costing the county more. Where most communities are improving their animal control, you are considering changing a successful program. Let's not move backward in time. Let's continue to progress forward as Alpena has been doing. I pray to God that you do what is right for the scared and voiceless animals in our community. I personally do not know Michelle Reed, and I hope this decision is considered on the true financial numbers and her success rates rather than personal feelings and agendas. And this is truly done in a fair process. Thank you very much for your time.
Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom?
Somebody stepping up.
Oh, Kevin. Sorry.
Let's wait and see if there's any more Amy. Amy Matuzak, 11096 Beaver Lake Road. I think read yours. Okay, my name is Amy Matuzak, and I live between Wolf Creek and Briar Hill Road. I'm here today to start a conversation, to find some direction, and to bring attention. There are 19 year-round homes on these 2 miles. Many of us are here today to show support. We all have a story of why we are here. Bear with us if we're emotional or passionate, because we are frustrated. We believe that we deserve to have a road that we can breathe, our animals can breathe, and we can enjoy our homes. I've had many conversations with the road commissions and what can be done to improve the conditions of our road. I've been told several things. They've always been respectful and informative, but never given me an idea of what we can do. I've been told to move farther off the road. That would be about 80 acres back. I've been told to build a hedge. I don't know, a wall, a dirt mound. I've tried trees, but we live on clay, so it didn't work. That we could only pave our road if it went from pavement to pavement. That if someone was to die on our road, that would get us attention. We've had several close calls for vehicles. Thankfully, no one's been spared that, and that our road would be paved never in my lifetime. I know it's not going to be easy, but I know it can be done. I can share my story next month because I only have 3 minutes. I looked up the master plan for Osneek Township from 2021 was the most current I could find that's printable. 308 pages of good read, but on there, on chapter 3, pages 17 and 18, I found that Beaver Lake Road is a primary road. It says that Alpena County Road Commission is responsible for road maintenance, snow removal, and improvements. There was a survey done at that time with respondents in Osneek Township. There was only 2 complaints, and that was Beaver Lake Road and Wolf Creek Road, compared to some of the other townships where there was pages of complaints and like 91 roads. We only had 2 on ours. I don't want to be negative, but I do want to know how we can get Beaver Lake Road, which is the only unpaved primary road in Osneek Township, to the top of the list. So I look forward to coming back, and hopefully you guys can give me some direction, give us some direction of what we can do as a county together to get some attention for our roads so that we can improve our quality of life. I don't know, there's several people here that might want to share their stories, and there were several people that were unable to make it today. But thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Not, we'll close, how about Zoom? Anybody on for Zoom? Are we raising their hand?
Our hand.
Before I close public comment, I'll make one thing. Road Commission has a meeting July 11th, board meeting at 3:00. That's where you probably have to express your concerns. I mean, they have their own board. They control their own finances. I mean, we can talk to them, but best thing to do is probably go to the board, county board, road commission board meeting on the 11th at 3:00. And talk to the directors and Ryan, Reggie, road commission guy. So Not, we'll close open session. Well, public comment. Okay, consent calendar. Action one, item one, motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes actions as listed attached and filing all reports. Do I have a motion, please? Do we have anybody want to pull anything? That's right, John, sorry.
FCSPC2.
Which is,
And then I guess I got a comment too, I guess, with the consent calendar.
we got that item pulled, and I still need a motion to approve the calendar as presented with that pulled motion. What's the other one, John?
Well, it's just because there was some things in the minutes that I thought should have been on the consent calendar as far as like action items.
Which item are you talking about?
What's that?
Which item are you talking about?
Well, there's two of them under the facilities. There was the tree clearing, that was a motion, and then actually there were tree clearing on the easement by Mr. Canfield, and then tree clearing around the airport in the perimeter.
That was facilities, correct, John? That's the facilities, and the other one you said was court and public safety, which,
No court and public.
oh, I'm sorry, my mistake,
Facility.
my mistake, sorry.
Again, it's just a question.
So let's work that question first then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, normally what I do is I go over the consent calendar and see all the action items for the different boards or whatever. It was under my impression that when there's an action item or a motion made on something, that item is actually then made into or put onto the consent calendar for review, like the FCC 2 that I called. The only reason, again, I don't have a problem with those, but to me, I thought we should be making those motion action items, adding them into the consent calendar under action items so they're easily reviewed. Because in this case, if I had a problem with either one of those tree clearing or how do I pull it? Because a motion was made, and how do I pull that without having a motion on the consent calendar? You know what I'm saying? So it would have been action item, SPC 3 and FCPC 4. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know who.
It's as much art as it is science, as far as what gets pulled over onto the consent calendar as an action item. Obviously, anything that's related to money, we absolutely pull over onto the consent calendar. Robert's Rules of Order is not exactly clear on what must be pulled over and what can be pulled over. Technically, anything that is made as a motion in those minutes, once you approve the minutes, you are approving the item. So the consent calendar really is just a way to draw people's attention to those items.
And that's what I normally do. I
Right.
review the consent calendar to see what those, and granted, I usually try to review everything, but if I was breezing over it, I'll look at those two items. If I didn't see the fine detail on the minutes, I would have approved that. And again, I don't have a problem with this, but my concern is that other items may be made as motions that we need to start getting on the consent calendar to bring our attention to those. Because again, if I didn't read down far enough, I might have missed those. And again, I don't have a problem with either one of them, but it's just I guess a concern that I would have on other motions being made that other commissioners or myself may miss.
Right.
Because
And
they're not abbreviated on the consent calendar.
And I see that. I mean, the consent calendar is kind of a way to highlight. And so, do we bring them all over? Do we bring none of them and just leave them in the minutes and rely on people to review the minutes? I like the consent calendar, but.
Well, I think
Yeah.
for me, I think it makes sense, and I don't know how anybody else feels, but, if we're bringing items, action items, motions that are made during those meetings over to the consent calendar, it's easy for us to kind of review the consent calendar real quick and say, I do have an issue with this and I want to pull it. So in this case, how would I pull, if I had a problem with that, how would I even pull it? Because there is no technically action item. What am I pulling?
You would ask to have, before you approve the minutes of that committee meeting, you would ask to review that particular item and that particular motion before you approve the minutes.
And again,
From a
that's
technical
just
perspective.
my perspective. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I just feel that it's easily brings our attention to those items that are motions in the different meetings. That's all I have on that.
Okay, now we move forward with moving the consent calendar with the one action that John had pulled. Do I have a motion, please? Motion by Commissioner Fournier, support.
I'll support it.
Commissioner Francisco, any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer, Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier, Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Okay, John.
So on action item FCSPC number 2, committee recommends approval of the Northern Lights surcharge collection and use policy as presented. In the discussion, I read that it was originally recommended to increase it to $1.50, and Northern Lights suggested recommended to leave it at $1 and then give an additional $3 per ice time. I guess my question is, what did we get a calculation or a total on what the difference was between what we could potentially get and what the $3 is going to get? Because I have no idea what that equates to.
We did, and I apologize, Commissioner, I don't have that folder with me, but yes, Northern Lights Arena did present to us some numbers for the ice time. I would have to go back and look at the ticket counts. If you did $3 an hour per hour for the ice, you're probably looking at between $7,000 and $10,000 next year.
And I recall they looked at, if you look at the 22-23 year, because of the exceptional year of the high school hockey team, that that it increased somewhat significantly for this year because of that. And so they were trying to determine, a better median or medium type of an amount. I recall that discussion.
Right, the ticket prices, obviously, they sold a lot of tickets this last year because the hockey did very, very well, but in some years, ticket sales for various events are not as good, and so, but the ice time is consistent, and so that seemed like a better way to be, refilling the surcharge fund.
At one time, Kim, it goes back, wasn't at $5 an hour ice time, we used to collect.
I really don't remember.
Yeah, we used to get $5 an hour. And for some reason, that was before I think you got on the board, John. And that, for some reason, that went away. But the $3 an hour, it's on all ice rentals. So it's not, if open and skate, or, people rents an hour ice, they're going to get $3 an hour. That we wouldn't collect money if we're not charging the gate fee.
Well, and again, I'm not too overly concerned. I just was kind of wondering what the difference was between the additional 50 cents per ticket versus the $3
There's
per ice
definitely
time.
more money coming in with the $3 per hour.
And more consistent. That was the biggest push.
More consistent.
The consistency.
If you rent 20 hours you rent a year, I don't know how many hours the rink is using now, but it's more than the 50 cents we're going to generate on ticket sales.
Okay, and then the only other concern with that, and I assume, but I shouldn't assume, that during the discussion, during that discussion in the meeting, that there was discussion of purchasing equipment with the surcharge fund. Did that not then get approved? Because I don't know if that was really clear on the minutes.
So that was in addition to the surcharge fund that was discussed, was if the surcharge fund was used to purchase that equipment, then obviously the county would then own that equipment. And that the committee seemed to think that that was a decent addition.
Well, and again, my concern about that, and you know, Bill, that when, and we've seen that every year, the Northern Lights has come to us and said, you know, we've got bills to pay. And I don't necessarily know, Kim probably would be able to tell us, is that growing or is it remaining stagnant? Because we have one roof to replace and that fund is wiped out. And to try to replace that, you know, with, you know, $10,000 a year, it's going to take us a long time to get it built up. So my concern would be is if we're purchasing equipment out of the surcharge fund, we really need to be thinking about long-term, which is what the surcharge fund should really be used for, is overall maintenance of HVAC systems, roofs, whatever.
Well, and I think it's important to remember that just because that language is included, that it may be used for that in the surcharge fee, it must come back to you guys for approval, either as part of the budgeting process or as part of a request from whoever the contract provider is there under, you know, the contract of the moment. So it's not like they automatically can go buy equipment and take that money out of the surcharge fund. They will have to come back to this board and request that. And at that time, you can make a determination. If you don't feel like there's enough money in the surcharge fund, then you don't approve the purchase.
I was at that meeting and I do not remember voting on it. I remember talking about it. But we did not vote on that part of it.
It was an amendment to the surcharge fund policy.
And I said no on that one.
I know Brenda's concern was like John's, with this equipment purchase, what's going to come with the additional cost down the road. And I know the Zamboni came up in discussion, and that obviously has a lot of maintenance to go along with a piece of equipment like that.
And that's a good point, because even with the equipment that we own, they come to us and say, we need X number of dollars for new whatever for this, like you said, the Zamboni. And again, that's a huge piece of equipment, but, you know, and I don't know what type of equipment they're looking to purchase, but I'd have a concern that it's additional costs that we have to worry about with the maintenance of that equipment.
The county technically owns the Zamboni.
Yes.
Yes.
There are two Zambonis, and yes, the county owns them.
If a roof goes or a furnace goes, and that money should come out of that surplus money that we're collecting. If that money's not there, who's going to pay for it?
So my question is, should we remove this from the calendar as well until we can fine tune it?
Is there any,
Well, I pulled it, so we don't,
Okay.
it's technically, we can say no for now and then, you know, dig into it.
I think that maybe it should be made more clear and more descriptive with some sort of separation with or without equipment.
like, you said that was an amendment on there, Mary Catherine?
It was, you can simply remove that. It was a bullet point on the policy.
You can pull it, amendment for the $6,000 will be the other one for the $1 ticket charge and $3 per hour ice time. Then they know going in.
So modify this action item to clarify what we're actually approving.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, just, you're gonna make a motion to pull that amendment. Correct, Mary Catherine?
Well, you would want to strike the language in regards to the purchase of equipment, but otherwise leave it intact, yeah.
So
Make that motion.
You could approve it with redacting or taking out that language.
so approve this motion with the caveat that the language for the equipment is removed.
Correct.
Okay. I'll make that
Motion by Commissioner Kozlowski, support.
support.
Support by Commissioner Konachevsky. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Osmer?
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone?
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier?
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco?
Yes.
Commissioner Konachevsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes. Okay, bills to pay. We got questions from Carrie.
Just had really one question, and I don't know if she can answer it. On the, because we get billed every month for the IHS pharmacy. And then on these bills, we have a whole bunch of individual bills. why do we get billed separately from FAVE versus IHS? Is it because it's located or?
Are these separate bills from separate vendors?
Oh, no, it's-
Our,
For individual inmate medication.
so normally we get billed through IHS, which is probably somewhere up here.
that I don't know. They come over from the sheriff, so, I mean, obviously they're probably using both vendors. I don't know why. To be honest, I guess I can't answer that.
Okay, I'll talk to the sheriff and ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it's a ton of money, but I just was curious.
No, the IHS has a contract with it, but I don't know if the other one does or not.
Any more? Any other? Not entertain a motion to approve the bill to be paid.
Make a motion?
Motion by Commissioner Konachesky, support.
I'll support.
Support by Commissioner Lalone. Any more discussion? Not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco.
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Okay, Denise.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Denise Bryan, your Health Officer with District Health Department number 4. It's a pleasure to be back to update you. Many faces I do recognize, a few new ones. Dr. Meyerson, our medical director, was unable to join me this evening to do something a little bit different and recognizing the tremendous amount of teamwork that we have in the health department. We're 4 counties strong. Alpena is one of the largest staffed offices that we have in our district. I have Kevin Prevost with us, Nathan Scott, Andrea Kruger, and Kathy Blakey, and they'll make brief comments about the work they do in public health. I wanted to explain, this is my 6th year with District 4, 10 years as a health officer in Northeast Michigan, and 28 years in public health. My background is health education, where I have focused on prevention of health and preventing illnesses, promotion of health and well-being, and the other piece with our annual report that we highlight is protection. We are regulatory, we have a sanitary code, as well as the public health code that outlines the authority of the health officer and the duty we have to work with our county commissioners to protect our county. So I do want to elaborate just a minute on public health structure in the state of Michigan. There's 45 health departments or health districts, and the city of Detroit is an anomaly. They're on their own city. There's about 11 districts. And so these are counties that formed an alliance to pool their resources to have the health officer and the medical director the required mandated services that the state code does require that we give. And so we have been 4 counties strong for a long, long time. I think we have 100 years coming up that we're looking at in the near future. I want to tell you that in our leadership with the board, we focus on our financial stewardship and responsibility, on HR, treating our staff well, and creating a strong, competent workforce. And the third driver in our business has been working effectively and efficiently with technology. That cybersecurity is a true risk that all businesses should be considered. So we have ramped up working with software and cybersecurity measures. So our health department has many programs. We have clinical programs, which we have nurses that go to homes, maternal infant health. We have a saying with our moms, every baby deserves a first birthday. So if we look at the morbidity and mortality data for infants surviving to their first birthday, the northeast part of Michigan has higher infant death to unsafe sleep and other factors than Grand Traverse, Kent County, and Washtenaw. And so they are linking those statistics to resources that rural counties oftentimes are missing. We do nutrition program. Our WIC is our biggest clinical program. And we also have children's special health care that work with families. They have special needs children. We all know about our immunization work. The 100-year pandemic, COVID, showed us the importance of being able to mobilize to vaccinate our community in times of emerging threat. But we also know that immunizations for children all the way to adults are an important part in medical care. Environmental health, restaurants, septics, and wells. We did see a financial increase from the state, the first one in like 50 years, supporting clean water, quality water programming. So that was eye-opening to receive those funds. We'll put them to good use. Our administration, emergency preparedness, health ed, our newest program, community health workers that provide and link needed families with resources in the community is addressing social determinants of health and is being funded as well. So with our first driver, always, unfortunately, the finance driver, we got to be able to pay our bills. I wanted to share that 48% of our funding comes from the state or federal dollars that pass through the state. So our CPA accountants tell us that we are relying for our sustainability on the state. They come in and do our accreditation every 3 years, and really it's 50% of our income. Me as a shared health officer and Dr. Meyerson as a shared medical director is a strategy to offset the salaries of the required positions and to free up money so we can keep adequately paying staff a raise that they need and deserve every year. 20% of our fundings are grant funds, and we got really strategic and energetic with writing for grants. It adds value, and it also can add a workload. The other thing is grants usually have a start and an end time. And so the work plan, you gear up, you work the plan, and then the money ends. So in terms of sustainable public health, it can be challenging to be relying on 20% of your funding through grants. The fees we collect as a health department currently is at 17%. It should be closer to 25%. We lost visits to our clinics. I think it's a fallout of mistrust of some government agencies. And so we really are going to do some outreach and some media campaigns on the importance of public health and how we can serve our families. I do think the last part is the county appropriations is 13% of our budget. And I do feel the connections we have with all our counties is very strong. Our commissioners have been very supportive. It's been a pleasure to work with them. I have to say that with negotiations with the union and trying to get wages up, that it's just a difficult, it's a pie, you can only slice it so many ways. It's a finite limit. I do know we have been receiving 3% in the formula that we have for appropriations, and that's up from 2% in previous years. Anytime there's an opportunity that we can be funded, of course, we would like to talk about those strategies with you. And I do think that it's a pivotal time in Lansing. When we talk about being, we're a decentralized public health system, so we do have the state and then the local health departments. And we really need to get more money. And we learned that if they don't invest in public health when we're really needed, air quality is a perfect example of something we should now be monitoring at a higher risk for our residents. And 10 years ago, we didn't really talk about the impact of climate on air quality. So we have to be nimble to address the emerging issues. We see an intersection of animals on human health. And to do that, the state really, that's my focus, was talking to Lansing about giving local public health more dollars. There was a CDC pass-through money from the CDC to the state of Michigan. And for 2 years, the legislature did not allocate those dollars out to local public health. We are hoping that the Senate and House will release dollars for the final year that that money's there. With the feds doing a clawback on all COVID funding, I did investigate with other health officers whether that money would be taken back from the state of Michigan. And the federal response was it's allocated to Michigan. They hope Michigan spends that money. So that's frustrating for me to know there's money that is sitting in the CDC pile of money that could be sent out to local public health. The governor went on live TV and said she's saving $30 million for local public health. Music to my ears, write the check. You know, we can't spend the money till it's coming into our bank account. And, you know, I shared it with staff that perhaps this is the year that we will get more funding. Whenever money comes in, the state tends to take money off the top for the state needs first and then allocates it out to local public health. One of the formulas they use to allocate dollars out to local public health is population. And that's where my 8 counties become disadvantaged over some medium to large cities that have higher populations. And we have talked about rural infrastructure and the need. That is great, and they should look at other aspects for funding from the state. But the governor said $30 million that would give me for 5 years. So it was a sustainable funds that, and I did the math, it could be $1 million for District 4. So 250 or 200,000 each year for 5 years. I have learned the place card holder is at 14 million. So the 30 million has already been slashed down to 14 million. And I heard there's additional take back of that 14 million. And once again, it's going to be divided by 45 health departments. And they were hoping to have the budget ratified through July, we were all hearing, right? Now they're silent this week. So if they pass the budget with 2/3 vote, they can also release dollars immediate. And so I have to pay attention to that because I really like to see that money roll in. I would do a stipend. In fact, it's part of our negotiations to provide the workforce any money that we'd be getting in from either of those funds, that I would gladly up our wages for our deserving staff. So if we are pretty dependent to be scrappy with the money that comes in, 75% of my budget pays wages. So it's hard to really, outside of outputs that we've invested in infrastructure, and we have used a lot of COVID money to purchase the IT things that we needed. There really isn't like tightening down the budget. We've already done that for 10 years. So I do think that a couple things are really important. We did gain a new EMR for our clinics called Pneumonia. And we also created mid-level positions, coordinators, so staff could be promoted up. We thought it was really important for retaining staff to have a way that they could be promoted up. We added more staff in a due diligence manner with some COVID funding, and we didn't grow too fast though. We have a strategic plan for those positions and grant money that should continue to support them. So I think we're working really, really smart as well. I always say we're small, but we're mighty. And, you know, family and friends during the pandemic said, you know, after COVID, why do you go back? In fact, of the 40-ish health officers, 18 have left in the last 2 years. And for public health, we're seeing 30% of tenured staff retiring and up to 50% of brand new staff in public health. I do believe in succession planning, and I also believe the teamwork is the winning combination here, and how networked we are in our community. When we needed to stand up testing clinics and vaccination clinics, they rolled out seamlessly here, and we should be very proud of that. It's time for a reset on our public health basics. And I do think that some of the new programming in identifying vulnerabilities in the community is really important. We have an epidemiologist now that we have added to our health department. And oral health is another funded program from the state where Head Start children and kindergartners can be screened for health of cavities and infections. And what I heard from our dental hygienist coordinator is that missed days of school correlate mostly to pain with cavities and infections, and it's hard to get into the dentist. So with that, we do have accreditation coming up. We have scored the highest scores you can get with many honorable accommodations right before COVID. Now they're coming back in October. And really, I think the focus of bringing health and prosperity and building resiliency in staff and community will guide us through this accreditation and onward. I'll let you read through the report. We have identified infographics to make that easy to read. I will yield now my time. I think the staff all want to make just a couple statements, and then we'll make ourselves available for any questions that you may have.
Kevin Prevost, District 4 Health Department EH Director. I've been with the department for 29 years, 4 as the EH Director. And, I've worked I lived in 2 of the counties and worked in all 4 extensively. So that's one nice thing about rural health departments that are underfunded. We get to know all the areas real well because we need to cover all those areas. So what we do, of course, as you see in the report, is we oversee the operational inspections for licensed food service establishments, swimming pools, campgrounds. We do all the permitting for on-site sewage, water supply for commercial and residential, and we oversee the monitoring of non-community water supplies as well. And then a whole handful of other things that are not necessarily, mandated programs, but we respond to, of course, environmental health complaints and issues with things in communities like that. We also respond to dog bites, rabies follow-up, things like that. So that's about it.
Nathan Scott, I'm the IT manager at the health department. I also wear another hat. I'm the union president. 24 years ago, when I first started with the health department, what brought me there was a nice stable schedule and some real competitive pay in a field that I wanted to do. Coming from a retail field where the hours were all over the place, I wanted something a little bit more stable. Today, 2023, the landscape has definitely changed on the outside. It's not the same. When I arrived at the health department, there was a waiting list of people. We had applications, lots of applications, lots of employees. I was told we had over 100 employees at the time. Now we're down to 40, 45, big difference in time. A lot of things have changed though. One of the major things that has been noted to me often is pay scales. How competitive can we be and where is that going? I don't really have a great answer for that, but I know that it is something that is talked about very often with new people if we're lucky enough to get them. That is another scenario. We don't see the applications. We just plain don't get them. So how can you get new employees, bring them on when you don't see them? But I've been there 24 years and I'm like an oak tree. I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy, real happy working where I am. Just hope things can get better down the road with funding. And we can maybe turn that around again, in that area.
Hi, I'm Kathy Goike, certified health education specialist and the public information officer for District Health Department number 4. I've been in public health for 34 years and 32 of them have been at District Health Department number 4. And most people don't know that health departments have health education professionals. We know they have nurses and environmental health sanitarians, but health departments do provide health education and resources to the community. Some of those responsibilities are sitting on community coalitions, partnering with local agencies like the schools and the hospitals, developing educational materials, doing our social media and website design, news releases. Also, there's some communicable disease testing, such as HIV and hepatitis C that we are involved in. And then also just grant writing and grant coordination, and then developing, implementing, and evaluating health education programs. So, and one of the reasons why I chose the public health direction rather than a school health education path was that public health offers such a vast opportunity to work at the community level, which with such diverse populations, age groups, and health issues. So your day is never boring because you might have 5 things and 5 different things working on in one day. And it's been very rewarding as a public health worker to know that we're investing in the futures and in the health of our communities, members that we serve.
Thank you.
I'm Andrea Kruger, and I am a community health worker at the health department. I've been there for 4 years. And I'm part of the Community Connections program. So there is a coordinator, and then there's 2 of us community health workers amongst the 4 counties. So lots of work. So what we help people do, some things are providing information, helping them with primary care providers, mental health counselors, dentists, applying for Medicaid, food assistance, childcare, cash assistance, assisting with MyBridge navigation, helping them set up transportation for medical appointments, appointment reminder calls, scheduling immunizations, and we assist them with filling out apartment applications, locating housing, which is one of the biggest challenges right now. Completing state of emergencies for shut-off notices, and obtaining utilities, including firewood. And then if they're denied for any of these, we go out and look for additional resources from other agencies. And we often obtain food for clients on an emergency basis if they don't have any. Provide them resources for food pantries, car repairs, home repairs, employment, and utilities. We conduct home visits and then follow up with clients when their pathway is complete, which can entail numerous phone calls. We are still working with people since October, so. But connecting the clients with the resources, it's stressful and difficult at times, especially transportation and housing right now. But the best part is it's rewarding when you're able to assist them in getting their basic needs, and they're very appreciative and give them a little relief of stress. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you are proud of the staff of District Health Department number 4. They're exceptional. And we do appreciate our facility. We're hoping to continue with the renovations. We need a little parking lot, paint for our handicap parking lots for especially our parents with needs children. And we look forward to serving with you to create health and prosperity and resiliency in our community. We are available for any comments or questions that you would like to make.
I have a question. I have one question, if I may. So what I'm hearing from a number of my colleagues is something that we are calling the statewide septic tank legislation, that it's in the legislature right now. From a health department perspective, can you give us any idea of what is going on with that and, you know, the potential impact that could have for our residents in Alpena County?
I think Kevin will be an excellent person with his environmental health.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
We'll bring Kevin up.
Yeah,
And at the family reunion coming up, Kevin, I'm sorry, you can beat me up then for throwing this question out there and not preparing you for it.
it's all right. No, it's a question that comes up often because it's, it's significant and it'll have significant impact across the board. And what I can tell you right now, the latest update I had from Maliha, which is our environmental health administration group at the state level, or across the state, I should say, is that at least as far as we can tell now, there's been enough pressure from most of the stakeholders. We're talking like Michigan Township Association, the SEMCOG, NEMCOG, the rest of them, ourselves, Maliha. They've at least put it off until probably September, maybe put the legislation into committee then, and then maybe have a hearing at that point in time. Because, the big issue is, none of us have said we're not willing to listen or talk about anything. That's exactly what our approach to them is the way it's been introduced is just not even possible to deal with logistically or financially. What we're saying is, get those of us that know these communities and understand what's going on around the table with you, and maybe we can come up with a good plan or baseline guideline that would work across the board. So that's the best I know now. I mean, it was introduced, the belief is it was introduced to just ram through because the language from both houses was identical. So the thought process was they just wanted to ram it through, get it done, and say that they did it without considering what the impact is. But at least for now, maybe it's put off for a while.
Okay.
That's as far as I know.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions?
I have a statement. I would like to say thank you for the warm welcome when I attended the meeting. She also made time. Denise gave me a custom tour through the whole facility, unplanned. I just asked if she had time and she did. I was able to meet the staff, literally every single person in DHD. And it's definitely a positive environment, a work environment. And I noticed the staff was the same reflection. It was very nice. Thank you for taking the time for that. And everybody was just an absolute pleasure to meet, so. The meeting was a little too quiet for me. It just wasn't rowdy enough. I mean, we'll work on that. So, that was good.
Anyone else? Thanks, Denise, for your up prayer. Thank you. Okay. Action item number 3, recommendation to authorize the county treasurer to disperse the recycling surcharge collected on the Alpena County property tax bills to Northeastern Michigan Materials Management Authority, starting with the winter 23 tax billing for the attached request from the Northeast Michigan Management Authority, as Northeast Michigan Council of Governments, NEMCOG, is no longer the fiduciary. Entertain a motion.
Provide the motion that we make the NMMA the fiduciary, beginning with winter property taxes in 23, as NEMCOG is no longer the fiduciary.
Motion made by Commissioner Francisco, support.
Awesome.
Support by Commissioner Malone.
So are you taking out the part where the county treasurer has the authority to distribute the surcharge that is collected on the winter tax bill?
I am not.
Okay.
I will rephrase my motion to
Thank you.
make it as written.
As written, there you go.
I guess it's just getting kind of warm in here and I was trying to expedite.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion? I have a second. Any more discussion?
The only question that I have is, we're talking about the $20 surcharge.
Correct.
Yes. that's currently in place with Resolution 18-11 and the intergovernmental agreements in alignment with the Urban Corporation Act of 1967, Section 8A1.
And then second part of that question is then and I'm assuming, because I know there was a discussion about raising it, I'm assuming that next month Cindy will come talk to us at the recycling, about recycling, and that will be where they see if we would increase the surcharge.
NEMA is working on collecting from the different townships resolutions to move that, and then they would come ask the county commissioners about doing that. So yes, once they have all of that put together, then I would anticipate that NEMA will put that request to this board.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Fournier,
No.
Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye,
No.
Commissioner Osmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Okay, Mary Catherine.
Yes, so the Alpena County Soil Erosion Ordinance you have, this was something that we had discussed at a previous facilities meeting. And the facilities committee recommended that we bring it straight to the full board for discussion and possible adoption. Currently, we do not have a soil erosion ordinance. Currently, we rely on state statute for our soil erosion and sedimentation program. The ordinance allows us to craft some of our own language in response to the state law, but most importantly, and I guess more critically for us, if we have our own ordinance and we are enforcing our own ordinance rather than relying on state law, then any fees or penalties come to the county rather than escheating to the state of Michigan, because we'll be enforcing our own ordinance rather than enforcing the state's ordinance for them. And so having our own ordinance allows us a little more control, but also gives us the fees and penalties.
Who would enforce it?
We have a contract person who does that work for us. And that contract is renews periodically.
So that was my question in looking at the resolution and the ordinance. How does this or does this not address the current contract we have for soil erosion? And again, with your ordinance, this indicates you have a complete separate fund set up where all those monies coming in and going out would be through this separate fund, which we currently do not have either. Setting up those funds and line items, and that's not a problem, just needing to know how to move forward, especially considering the contract we have with the money that comes in for the soil erosion permits. The contract is the person that is contracted is receiving 90% of those funds back. So without a new contract being addressed, my question would be, okay, so now is this contract going to say this person providing those services is going to get 90% of the fines back as well as they're collected? And these are generally court-ordered fines. And as the clerk's office can testify, when stuff is court-ordered, it may be court-ordered for $500 or $1,000. But it doesn't mean it's paid all at once. Many times this is little bits restitution over a number of years. So there's some accounting issues that would need to be addressed as far as the county treasurer is concerned as well. Now, that's not to say that they couldn't be addressed. You couldn't pass this and then address these, but these issues would need to be addressed. Specifically, like I said, right now, 90% of everything we bring in on soil permits is presented with an invoice to myself. I verify that we've sold and paid for the permits and then sign off on making that payment. Is that going to carry forward into this new ordinance and when would it become effective? That would be the other issue as far as with setting up the new fund, pulling it out of the general fund.
I would think the fines would be a separate line item as compared.
Yes, yes, most certainly. I would expect it to be a separate revenue line item as well. But part of my question is the contract that we currently have paying 90%, is that going to include 90% of the fines as they come in, as they're actually paid as well? I would assume not, but you know what happens when you assume and you don't have it in writing.
Yeah, I think we would need the contract revised first, almost, because if we put this in place and then we don't change the contract, then is he getting 90%?
So actually, yes, we will absolutely address the contract. Right now, the contract already addresses the fact that fines are paid to the state of Michigan. So all it means is that instead of being paid to the state of Michigan, fines are paid to the county of Alpena. The current contract absolutely, we would want to look over it and make sure that it comports with the ordinance. But as of right now, the ordinance allows you to contract for services, that is an allowable way to handle your soil erosion and sedimentation program. So yes, we would want to, then also review the contract once you have adopted your ordinance to make sure it comports with this.
What's the start and end date of the contract for a contractual person?
It's renewed.
Is it like January to December, or is it like April to April, or?
Right now, it's renewed annually.
Like, when's the end date, I guess is what I'm asking.
Contract, so it's calendar year.
Calendar year?
So the ordinance, is it to the relationship with the statute, the state statute? I mean, does this address it? Does it make it more restrictive, less more permissive? I mean.
Right. It's essentially the ordinance as it has been drafted mirrors the state statute. There are a few things that Mike Kalszewski, who is our current soil erosion and sedimentation contract person, noted, but there are things that we can address as we work into this. One thing that we had brought out at an earlier facilities meeting, but just so that you guys have it fresh in your mind as a recollection item, the city of Alpena is discontinuing their soil erosion and sedimentation program. They are not required to have a soil erosion and sedimentation program. The county is. So as of July 1, they will no longer have a soil erosion and sedimentation program. So all of those permits will now need to come through the county. They really don't do a lot. My understanding in talking to Mike Kalszewski is that it's maybe 10 a year, and that would be a very big year for them for permits. So it won't be a lot of additional volume, but, having an ordinance of our own that then we have the ability to review periodically, suggest changes to, this is a first reading. If you guys have things you want to change on it, there's not a rush to do this because we do have the state statute that we are operating under currently, so.
We have an actual document in place.
No.
So, because I noticed, I don't know how when I open this up, it says Kalamazoo right here.
Oh, yes, probably because I use that as a model.
I don't see why we're personally even doing this, because the city don't want to do it anymore. Why should we start doing it?
We don't have a choice.
Well, what we're doing right now seems to be working just fine. Did they tell us we could not do it anymore that way? We have to do this. What we have now is working.
Yeah, it is working. But also, Mary Catherine said, there's fines or something that goes directly to the state instead of coming back to the county.
What are we paying for and this is something maybe I should know, what are we paying for this contractual person?
So as the treasurer mentioned,
90% of all the money that we bring in.
And then that is what they're.
Right.
Okay.
So there's an incentive.
Right,
For him to
for
get the
having our
permits.
own ordinance, right?
no, because he doesn't get paid if he approves a permit. It is an application fee that who are paid. So he gets paid regardless of whether there is a permit issued or a not a permit issued. He is paid for the application, to review the application, and he is paid an inspection fee when he goes
No,
out.
that's what I mean. That's the incentive for them to review and approve the application. But there is no incentive then to go out and do fines, because right now, if there is a fine because someone isn't doing what they're supposed to, none of that money is going back to him.
No, it's not. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily what we would want to do is incentivize, but it's certainly a discussion that we could have. But yes, I think look at his compensation.
Yeah, because right now, if he's not gonna make money, there's no, and again, I'm not saying that that's why he would do it, but he's only getting 90% of the money, well, that's quite a bit, but 90% of the money of all the applications. But again, when it comes to the fines, there's nothing till we change the contract.
But it is a way to keep revenue local rather than sending it back to a state level.
Right.
And that's the main objective.
Right.
Another issue that has been brought up is this ordinance clearly states that you have to have a separate fund. So right now, the soil erosion and sediment fees that the county is collecting and paying out 90% is within the general fund and is commingled within the animal ordinance. It's all part of ordinance. So this would be one way to pull that little bit out of the animal shelter ordinance or set it aside. It would be cash neutral to the county, whether it was part of general fund or a separate fund on its own, as long as we stay with the current contractual situation that we have. But again, because that's not specifically addressed in what's in front of us, not to mention the time frame, because it's like, okay, if you guys wanted to sign this and go forward first thing July 1st, then what do I do as far as, our calendar year? Do I leave this money that we have in our ordinance in general fund now? Do I move it already? So there's a few moving parts that I'm not saying can have to be done one way or the other, but there are those things that do need to be considered. If and when there are fines issued, then, as Mayor Catherine stated, with the ordinance, then the county could keep those funds and spend them. And it does specify specific things that you can spend that money on as well. But without the ordinance, we would issue those fines back to the state. Rather now, and it's like I said, a judge can order a $10,000 fine. Very rarely is that person going to write a check for $10,000 and say, here you go. Realistically, it's going to be collected through the clerk's office over a number of years at $20 here and $30 there. So rather you have it, a separate fund, it's not going to be all of a sudden we have lots of money. There are those two incidents, but realistically, it's going to be a slow building. And again, depending on if you stick with the 90% of the cost of the permits and inspections, those are all movable pieces, I guess.
Question. Two questions. First of all, I can't wait to see the conspiracies about how soil erosion, addressing that issue, trying to keep the kibble out of puppies' mouths, because I'm sure that's going to be the next last. The two questions I have, one is similar counties have adopted this, like Kansas and whatnot. What kind of fund, and probably Kansas is not the best example, but maybe a county similar to ours that has adopted this, what kind of revenue increase are they seeing? I guess would be one question. And the second question would be, you said this pretty much mirrors state law. Are there any items on here that aren't included in state law that might be in addition to?
No, not at this point. And I did talk a little bit about that both with, our current contract provider, Mike Kalashewski, but also with the city in terms of, are there things that we might, because obviously you can't do less than state law, but you could do more than state law. And, as we live into this and, see how it works out, as we continue to think about our watersheds, which is obviously mostly what this is concerned with, is our watershed areas. You know, are there things that we might decide that we want to be more restrictive about in terms of our soil erosion and sedimentation program? But no, currently, it really just mirrors the state.
So just then the income question, and that's something I realize probably needs research. And then, I'm sorry, one other thing that popped into my mind. Adopting this ordinance, would it cost us the ability to seek grants or any type of funding or, okay, I just want to make sure.
Is Mike Kalashewski currently enforcing these rules?
Yes.
So he's the enforcer along with the approval?
Right. And, you know, which is something to think about moving forward is, you know, do we need additional enforcement? Obviously, he can also call in law enforcement once we have an ordinance on the books, because then it's a civil infraction. And you note in here in the enforcement section, and I mirrored the statutory language, it's, you know, the county drain commissioner, the soil erosion and control agents can issue municipal civil infraction citations, which will then bring them into court, which then brings them into the fines and fees.
So for clarification, the current Mr. Kalashewski does not get a percentage, whether it's 90% of the fines, that goes to the state. So as long as the ordinance does not allow him that, and I would imagine that statute would preside over that and not allow us to do that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good.
The one other question that I have is, so you said that we're required as a county to have this soil erosion ordinance. In the first paragraph, it says the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control of the Natural Resource and Environmental Protection Act of 1994. If this was around since 94, why are we just now?
No. So I want to be clear. We are required to have a sedimentation and soil erosion program, which we do. We have had it for quite some time, which is why we contract with Mike Kalashewski. But what he is, the rules that he is following and what he is enforcing with the county as the designated, the person to whom the state has entrusted this responsibility, is the state statute. All we would be doing with this is adopting our own ordinance. So now it becomes a county ordinance that must contain in it that we're allowed to pass by the state statute, but it must contain all of the minimum requirements of the state statute. So all we are doing is adopting our own ordinance that would control soil erosion and sedimentation. We don't have to do this. We can leave it exactly as it is, to Commissioner Fournier's point. Our program would just march on as it exists right now. We would be enforcing the state statute. You know, we could continue the contract as it is. And if there are ever fines or penalties, we pay them back to the state of Michigan. By adopting our own ordinance, we collect those fines and fees. And also we then have local control. We have the local ability to create additional or more restrictive provisions if you so choose.
If there is a fine, does that money come to you, then you have to return it to the state, or is it they have to pay the fine to the state?
The fine doesn't come into my office in any, well, I shouldn't say that. It comes into the clerk's office, and then when the clerks bring their transmittal over, it comes to my office. But it's paid as any other fine to the clerk's office.
Then that we have.
And then it's just cheated back to the state.
So there's those $20 and $30 transactions that are going to Carrie's office and back to your office and to the state.
But we do that all over the place.
There's lots of stuff we give back to the state.
That's just part of the process between the clerk's
eliminate
office and the treasurer's office.
One step you should net send to the state.
And it's just a local control issue.
Yeah.
So.
I just think, excuse me, it's too much to take on because of what we already have that we're not even getting done currently. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we don't have a problem right now, so why should we jump into one?
So we have the resolution. Is any more discussion on it?
sorry, and maybe this was answered earlier, and I missed it. There is no increase in what the gentleman who currently oversees this would be expected. Okay.
No, by adopting this ordinance, you would not be changing the contract with Mike at all.
But I mean, like,
That-
would the next round, would he expect an increase? I'm just wondering if there's been any conversation with, what's regularly, you know.
To be fair, Mr. Kalaszewski has indicated that he will be retiring at the end of the year. So we will be having to draft a new contract and find a new soil erosion and sedimentation provider
So there's no plans then to change the current contract
and
to,
let it run out,
okay.
would be my recommendation.
So still back to my question is, if you pass this ordinance and it goes into effect immediately in January, because it does affect how I need to move forward for accounting purposes.
On a transition like this, is there a time period that would make sense for your office to be able to?
We can do it either way.
Okay, so
I just need to have, clean breadcrumbs for the auditors. And again, when Mr. Kalaszewski presents an invoice for me to verify that we have sold, we have received payment for those permits and that he's looking for the reimbursement for the 90%, that is still what you want done because it's not specified in this ordinance.
And to be fair, the ordinance wouldn't specify that, right? That's going to be governed by the contract language. I mean, you guys can set a timeline. The ordinance does have to get the approval of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. So it does have to be approved by Eagle. So it wouldn't go into effect tomorrow anyway, even if you did adopt it tonight. But it must be adopted by you before I can send it to Eagle for them to review. So then it might, Eagle might have something, I hope not. I hope I've done a good job in drafting the ordinance, but it might come back and then you have to make an amendment before it can go into effect.
I have a question.
So we have one question.
If it was adopted, does it make sense that the ordinance would have to be adopted first before you could create a separate line item?
Yeah.
Okay.
We wouldn't.
In terms of like orderly, the ordinance is first.
We would definitely not create the line items until there's a reason to do so. So this would actually have to be adopted. And as far as moving forward as to, so of the $9,200 of application money we have received so far this year, it would be a matter of because our calendar year for accounting is January through December. When do I switch from here to here? But those things can be addressed. I mean, and the same thing, I would refer to our auditors. Would my auditor want me to pull that 9,200 into the new fund or leave it into the general fund halfway through our year? But those are all issues that I can address as we move forward.
Do we know about, and just guessing, because I don't expect you to know a number that you had no notice about. Do we know, on average, what was sent back to the state last year?
That would be something that I wouldn't have processed.
Find out, I don't know what else I can. Do you mind, Carrie? I'd appreciate that. I just kind of, just a little gauge, be interesting.
Let me ask Chair. So as I try to simplify things, the ordinance gives us more local control. It creates additional work for the treasurer's office to create the separate fund, but it allows us to retain some revenue, and maybe not a lot, but some revenue that otherwise would go forward to the state.
And once the fund and that is created, it's no big deal. I mean, we're still only receipting for that money one time, whether we receipt for it into the general fund or we receipt into the separate sedimentation fund. And the same thing with, paying for the professional services.
Right.
It's just which numbers do we put it under?
So again, to simplify it, treasurer has her piece, and I got that. That's done when that's done. So we maintain a little more local control, and we have an increase of increase in revenues that otherwise would go back to the state. Okay.
Right.
So Mike Kalashewski is going to retire. So if we go with it, he retires, and we have to hire somebody to take his place.
We would either way, whether,
We have to.
Either way,
Either way.
whether we pass this, whether you guys pass this ordinance or whether we don't, he is still doing the same work. It is, there is no change in the work that whoever we have as our contract provider for soil erosion and sedimentation program is doing the exact same work.
And another problem I have, if you're gonna make so much money on this, why did the city give it up? I mean, why? Apparently they're not making any money and it's not a big problem. But I'm not gonna say anymore.
Oh, you're
Well,
fine.
a quick answer, my opinion is this only applies to something an acre or larger. And in the city, that's pretty uncommon to have someone doing a lot of digging that covers more than 1 acre. So they were probably trying to, pacify the person that was handing out their permits, paying them 90%, when he was probably only writing, 10 or less a year. It's probably not worth the burden for him to make a couple $100 a year, my assumption.
I just think it's gonna be a problem.
How difficult would it be to undo this and go back to the old way if we get a year or two in and we're like, oh, this is just something we're interested in?
You just would strike the ordinance.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't some weird, like we have to jump through hoops with the state or something to them.
Any more discussion? If not, I'd look to entertain a motion to adopt this recommendation to approve that soil erosion ordinance and adopt resolution 23-13 soil erosion ordinance as presented. Jesse?
I'll support.
Motion by Commissioner Osborne, support by Commissioner Francisco. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Francisco?
Yes.
Commissioner Konarzeski?
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer? Commissioner Lalone?
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier? Commissioner Peterson?
Yes. Okay, action item number 5, recommendation to approve the RFP bid from C2AE in the amount of $67,500 recommended from the Plaza Pool Work Group and approved to move forward with the conceptual design engagement. Requested contribution from the county of $3,000 towards a matching grant needed to fully fund this proposal. To be funded out of ARPA funds. Rick Catherine?
Yes, and so I realized after I went back and read my memo that it was not as clear as I could have been. So the text is all fine, but for the funds that are committed at this point, what is in blue are not committed funds. What is in blue are asks that have gone out into the community. So if you minus those back out, but include the county with the $3,000, which is why the county was being requested to contribute to this, you have exactly the amount of money that is needed to cover the contract. Obviously, if some of these additional asks come in, then we might be able to reduce the amount that the county contributes, or further reduce the amount that is being asked as a contribution from youth and rec. This was the low bid for that RFP, but when the committee did the background and their due diligence and looked at the projects that they had completed and talked to some of the folks who had worked with C2AE in the past, they were very impressed with them as a group.
Just one quick question. I remember us talking about the fire and all those we were going to take into consideration. Youth and rec and the school committee's suggestion. I thought we were going to be able to view each of the plans that were going to be presented. The only one I can see is the one that was actually being put forth for the bid.
And I apologize, Commissioner Osborne, I did send those out previous.
Did you? Okay, instead I apologize.
We had all the things previous, all the contracts.
Send those out earlier.
I asked would be used as scoring matrix or whatever. I guess two things is how did you end up the lowest one with the scoring matrix? And what was that matrix that was used to identify these as the top, whatever three? You indicated, I think in the memo or wherever it was, the top three were.
Right. So it was it was a scoring matrix that the pool committee, the pool work group came up with, and everyone in the pool committee filled out that matrix, and we took the ones that scored, that had the top scores. And it just so happened that C2AE, which is also the low bid, happened to score very, very well.
Who created the scoring matrix?
It was come up with, as a group with the pool committee.
And then the other thing is, I know the high school is part of this working group. And I just happened to hear this morning that they did have a surplus budget. I guess and I know that the superintendent has been a driving factor to say that we need a new pool. I think I know why, but my thoughts are if they're truly behind this, even if the ask for the city was 1,500, why didn't we get at least a minimal ask from the school? Again, going back to their surplus budget as it was indicated this morning on the news.
I wish I could answer that question. I can't answer for the school
I
and
get
for
why you
APS.
can't answer for them, but I guess, and again, I probably had mentioned this frustration before, if we've got this buy-in from these groups, and again, I definitely know the pool or the school is a big supporter of getting this pool back with the current superintendent, that there should be some buy-in from them.
And as you say, I know that obviously they've been very involved in this program, in talking through this and thinking about the potential solutions. They were very involved in the interviews and in putting together the RFP and the scoring. I don't know. I don't know what the restrictions are on those funds. I know we talked about the use of some of their bond money, but that has a lot of strings on it as far as what they are able to use those funds for. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't want to speak for.
No, I'm not asking you to speak for them, but again, it'd be nice if at some meeting that they're part of this working group, they'd say, well, the reason we can't give any money is because, but we have, Besser, First Federal, Friends of the Plaza Pool, we have all these other entities that are willing to, the county, willing to, not, yes, contribute, but yet the school is a driving factor behind, wanting to get a new pool, and yet their name isn't on this list.
I think they would have probably been, if they were building a new pool on their property, they'd be right there with more money.
Well, and I get that, and that's not gonna happen, but, like I said, the frustration on my part is where, the school is, again, a driving factor behind this pool group and a big part of it. And, you would think that they would be willing to contribute something. And then the other question is, with the youth and rec, because I know that wasn't our original request to youth and rec. And I know you had mentioned when we had the youth and rec meeting that, if we come back, we could ask less later. At what point do we indicate to them? Because I would assume that, we tell them before they make their decision because we don't need it. And then the other piece to that is, let's just say the community sponsors, city and the youth and rec gave us all those amounts. It indicated we got an additional 21.5. What do we do with that additional money? What would be the plan with that?
Right. I think you could do a couple of things with it. One of the things in talking to C2AE is, the end product that they will be providing as part of this engagement. You could ask for some additional services from them at the end of this contract. And whether that is advice, working with them as a consultant for funding, which is something that C2AE does, but it wasn't something as part of this RFP process. You could use some of that as part of an engagement for them to help identify funding to help build whatever building that they might design or come up with. Or that could be seed money for a capital campaign of some sort in order to raise funds, or you return those funds to the organizations that granted them. I think any of those are options. But obviously, if you use them for something other than the engagement, you would have to have agreement from those entities.
I have a question. The bid was 67,500, right? And you have listed 89,000 on, is that just contingency money extra?
Right, it's the contingent money. So it's if you include the community sponsorship asks, the ask to the city of Alpena and dollars from Youth and Rec.
And that would be one of my questions as far as with the youth and rec. Because the youth and rec that they're looking at now is 2024 grants. And for their grants, the invoice would have to be dated January 1st of 24 and paid in 24. And if you look at the schedule of completion that was provided for the proposal, they're looking at this final concept in November. So this would indicate they would want that paid in 23. So.
Right, but that is assuming that we actually started the engagement in May, which obviously we're at least 2 months and probably 3 months past that.
So, but a youth and rec grant would still, 24 grant would still be looking to be invoiced in 24 if they were going to go move forward in 23 to ask for a special exception or that type of thing. My only other thought is when I'm reading this action item, it's a request for contributions from the city, and it's a request from the Plaza Pool Work Group. To my understanding, we cannot write a check to the Plaza Pool Work Group. So that being said, we could set up the expense line item within your ARPA funds, pool conceptual design contributions. And when it came time for a payment to be made, that would have to be provided to the clerk's office, be able to cut a check.
I'm not reading the action item in the same way, so I want to make sure.
Well, the recommendation from the Plaza Pool Work Group and to approve to move forward with the conceptual design engagement and request a contribution from the county. Who is the county supposed to write a check to?
So
that's where we have our problem.
Inelegantly designed. So no, the engagement is with the county. So it would simply be that we are allocating the county, if the commissioners approve it, the commissioners would be approving an allocation of $3,000 from the ARPA fund to pay this to ourselves for professional services.
So we're going to take on the entire thing.
The RFP was always with the county. That was the approval.
Right, the RFP.
Yes, so we're approving the RFP.
So we'll get the money from Family Foundation, everything comes, and we'll pay for the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The engagement would be the county.
Sorry, Mary Catherine, when was that sent out with the pools? Because I didn't see it and I can't find it. I did have a question though with the, I'm a little surprised. We're being given one option by the board, not like a 1 or 2, which is kind of unusual, just to say you can either have this or you can't. And, more than one entity, was it 4 or 5?
There were 6 responses.
6 responses. And they're just basically saying you can either have this one or no. Odd not to say, in most programs, they might throw up like a A or B. And this one's just kind of.
I think this is their recommendation of all of the 6. This is what the pool group recommends, correct?
Or what they're recommending is we either take this one or we don't.
Or it goes back to the pool working group, I guess.
Okay.
Right. Well, and to be fair as well, I know that, funding, and I expressed this to the pool work group in the meetings, that funding was certainly an issue, right? And this is the proposal that that the pool group has been able to identify funding that would cover.
it's a big promise for $67,000, it looks like, and I just have a feeling the county's gonna bend, we're gonna end up somehow covering some of this, either immediately or quickly thereafter, but.
I mean, the money that's in black is committed. Those are dollars that we have commitments for to cover.
More discussion.
Just for clarification, so if we say no, we're not going to contribute $3,000 to this, what happens next?
It's right. So I mean, I guess there's in some ways there's two parts to this, but in some ways there is just one. You can approve the RFP without the contribution on the working assumption that some of these other dollars will come in to cover it. What you must understand, of course, is that because the engagement is with the county, at the end of the day, you are guaranteeing that you are going to pay that engagement, right? So by approving this particular RFP, given the funds that have been committed thus far, there would potentially be some money that the county would cover in order to pay the contract for this engagement. You could send it back to the pool group and say, we need further commitments, or we'd like to see some more proposals. All of those other proposals do come with higher ticket prices. I think the highest one came in at $147,000, so almost double this engagement. So it would be up to you as obviously as the board as to how you wanted to handle this. At this point, this is the pool committee's recommendation, and they've done a lot of work to find some funding to cover this so that it didn't fall on the county to cover this cost. Once they are done with this engagement and they have designed something and have put a price tag on it, it is entirely up to you guys what you do with it. You can take that plan and you can shove it on a shelf. You can decide that you want to try to move forward with it. It is just a conceptual design engagement to dream about what a new pool could look like.
So basically, Mary Catherine, before we sign we commit to the contract, we're going to need the funds in the county offers before. So we're going to need the 67.5 before we even sign that contract.
So that's what you're saying, that before you sign the RFP saying that the county's going to pay for it, you want the reimbursement money from the other entities to come in before you.
Yeah, because I don't mean, say if, donations are fine if you got them in your pocket. If you don't have them in your pocket and you're committing something, and pretty soon we're stuck with some money and some fines. So, I mean, if the Park family is going to commit 50,000 and then Besser Foundation's 20,000, that covers that.
Well, the Besser or the Parks Foundation is only matching.
It's matching.
Matching.
Right, yeah, so it's only a matching.
Okay.
But it is up to 50,000. So if we identified $50,000, Park Family Foundation potentially would match up to that, and then we'd have 100,000. We didn't quite find another 50,000, but we took advantage of a good chunk of it, and we're able to identify funding to cover this particular engagement with a very small contribution from the county. As you guys know, right, the pool, as we have talked about a lot, is an aging asset. So we are going to have to think about what happens to the pool, whether it is through this process or another process. It's 50-year-old infrastructure.
On the scoring, were the scores close at all on any of them, or were there big gaps between?
I would say that there was a big gap between the three that made the top and the rest of them, the other three.
We're sending this back. I would like to see the three and
Yeah.
understanding of how they scored and why, just I have problems with that. I'm given one option, like bugs me. That's all.
Oh, and I can say I was part of that committee. And I missed a few meetings, but I was part of it when we did the scoring and all that stuff. And it was, just by looking at it, the one that was double wasn't even close to the one that's the lowest one. So, I mean, it's
But if I'm understanding this correctly, Mary Catherine, you're indicating that you have a commitment of the 20,000 from Besser, 5,000 from First Federal, 5,000 from Friends of the Plaza Pool, looking for a commitment of 3,000 for the county, which would give you the 33,000, which would then be matched by the Parks Family Foundation, which gives you 66,000 of what you're anticipating the cost of, what is it, 67? It's just right here.
$67.
Right, and then.
So
1,500
Commissioner-
plus the county.
yeah, Commissioner Peterson, yeah, when you're saying that, okay, before you accept the proposal for this RSP and commit the county to pay for it, you want to see those funds coming into the county ahead of time.
Correct. Correct. I mean, if everybody's on board with this, then let's get the funds and get it going. If not, I mean, I don't want to put the county on the hook for $67,000.
Well, and there is a difference with commitment, and I seen it with the Boys and Girls Club project. There was quite a few large donors that agreed to some very large numbers, and that is not exactly what rolled into our capital campaign. So, I mean, a little bit of hesitancy, I think that's respectable. I do think it's a really good project, but I think it's important to have that for our
The
youth.
project is going to be $10 million or more.
Right, right.
Somebody's going to have to come up with the big money.
That's a big project, but I think a little hesitancy, I think that's respectable.
So, anybody want to make a motion on this? That caveat?
Make a motion that we table this until next full board meeting, give us time to look for funds and kind of have a better understanding of the other projects.
I'll support that.
Support by John. Okay, any more discussion?
Who is the chair of the Pool Plaza Working Group? Is there a formal organization or is it just an ad hoc group without any kind of hierarchy? Just a group?
I mean, I would say, that, no, there's not. The superintendent of schools kind of convened the group and we meet out at the pool, the superintendent's building out there, the APS administration building. But, there is no formal hierarchy for that group.
Okay.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, move it forward.
Oh, we tabled it, right?
Tabled it to move it forward.
Right. Yep. Cool.
Okay, action item number 6, resolution for adopt resolution 2312 approving the intergovernmental agreement establishing the Alpena County Land Bank Authority as presented. Catherine.
Yes, so this was a resolution that was put together based on some recommendations and meetings that we have had in regards to opportunities for the county to participate in some state funding, but also gives the county as well as our economic development groups in our community some additional tools in their tool basket to work on development projects. County land banks and, Treasurer Ludlow can also chime in on this, are a really nice tool. They can do as much or as little as you would end up liking them to do. They can sit pretty much without anything happening. They don't cost us anything to run if we're not doing any projects with them, or they can be very active, but they give the county some additional tools for development and for the handling of property.
So basically, this is an agreement between Alpena County Treasurer and the State Land Bank. It does have to be approved by the Alpena County Board. It sets up a separate, completely separate entity with the county treasurer and the authority. We have to apply for our own EIN, own separate set of books, so on and so forth. The thing is with a land bank, if you do not have a land bank established, when opportunities become available, as there's going to be $500,000 worth of land bank, ARPA federal grant funding available here starting next month. But it's only available for land banks. If you don't have a land bank, you can never use it. As Mary Catherine indicated, some counties have a land bank and have one, maybe two projects every couple of years. Other land banks are very active. There are different ways to get property into a land bank to be eligible to be used for this grant money. Foreclosed properties from the foreclosing governmental unit, which is in Alpena County, it's your county treasurer. Those properties can be sold and or sometimes given directly to the land bank, but the land bank is not restricted just to tax foreclosure properties. You can receive properties from other governmental units. They can be deeded property from people in general. It is a way to address some of the blight eliminations, burnt out buildings, so on and so forth, with some grant funds. One of the biggest issues statewide with county land banks historically has been funding, because there is no ongoing permanent funding mechanism. There is none. You can hope your local governments give you some money, or even your county government. Generally, you're looking at grants and then trying to move property forward and bring money back in through selling it that way, cleaning up. But there's also TIFs and that kind of stuff. A lot of times the properties in the landfill can apply for a brownfield. There's a lot of positives to having a land bank established, even if you don't use it a whole lot. But again, if you never put it in place, it's not available.
See, Lenny's here. Lenny, you want to address a little bit? He's with,
I'll come up. Hello, board. My name is Lenny Avery, Economic Development Coordinator, and this camera is looking at my chin. So I'll step back a little. So I guess I'm the subject matter expert when it comes to your economic development wing of this area. So, I cannot say how great of an explanation that was. And I don't need to top it, but I can answer specific questions if you have some. Because that was a very good
Just kind of an overview. Because I've read the recipe, but I haven't baked it. So, you know what I mean?
Here I'll give you a for instance of how a land bank can work. Okay, let's just do it like brass tacks. And here's an example. Let's say you have property at ABC Avenue. 123 is the address. So 123 ABC Avenue. It's blighted. It's horrible. And there's a grant that comes up for land banks only. That would be for $250,000 to bring that property down. Okay. So you would get three options for that grant. You can do acquisition, which you can purchase it from the particular individual. You can do stabilization, which you can, put on a new roof or, stabilize the structure so it doesn't fall in on itself. Or you can do demolition. Okay. So those are the three normal things that you can do with a grant that comes out. What the land bank is able to do, the land bank could aggressively seek out certain blighted properties, purchase it with those grant funds. They could demo it, and then they could do an infill, meaning they could build a house in its place and then sell that particular house to get additional funding in their coffers. Okay. Second way they can look at to do this is that, let's say, for example, you have a partner agency. I'm just going to use Habitat as a partner agency. You can bring down a blighted piece of property and turn it down back to just a patch of dirt. Okay. Then you could sell that dirt to Habitat for one of their Habitat houses. The land banks makes money off of reclaiming that dirt and turning that property down. Habitat gets a piece of property that they can do their next Habitat household. And then you get a new community infill house that you get a taxable value on. So that's kind of how this works. It does have 5 committee members so that it is not the state coming in telling you how to run this. This is local government, local control properties. Now, you don't have to, again, I'm sure your treasurer will love me for saying that. It does not have to be foreclosed properties, okay? You can designate a person, because I know government moves super slow. You can have someone that has the power to move fast, meaning, hey, I see this property, I want to get on this property, I want to move it faster than our normal meeting and do purchase. But again, it could be as active or as less as active. Eric Scherzinger, who was a county treasurer for over 20 years, ran a land bank, and they were able to put $4.5 million of supplemental income into their coffers just from using land bank. So there's an opportunity to use it. Now, do I think Alpena has that many properties that they can use it? No, but do I think it's a great tool to have? I do believe that as well.
You got a grant application for $500,000. It has to be in by August 1st, right?
It's not even a grant application. You're guaranteed $500,000.
Yeah, I guess-
You're getting $500,000 of ARPA dollars. If you approve this tonight, you're guaranteed, they'll give you a grant agreement of $500,000. You sign it, it'll hit you, but then you have to determine what project. So then the land bank committee gets to decide, okay, what are we doing with this 500,000? Meaning whose property are we picking off to getting this blight out of here? And then you'll have a line outside the door with residents saying, get this neighbor out of here, get this piece of property out of here.
But at the same time, this 500,000 is reimbursement. It is not, here's 500,000, go spend it. It is, here's 500,000, you present us the projects, but the land bank has to present the projects. If once the project's approved, then they say, yep, okay, so you've got a project for 250,000. But again, it is a reimbursement. So this is where things get tricky with the land banks, back to having, like any other grant, that it's a reimbursement grant. Now, I was in on a conference Zoom meeting earlier today. There are some possible where they'll say, okay, maybe you don't have to do all of this paid up front. Maybe we can do, but that's on a very minimal case. 90% of the time, these are reimbursement grants. They are not, here you go, it's in your bank account.
But then once you get that land bank established, start getting some of that money dumped back into the land bank, you'll have a bank to work on.
Yes, yeah, and it's definitely something, it's a tool. But if you never purchase the tool, if you never set up the tool, then you're never going to have it to use going forward.
Lenny, can you refresh my memory? How long did Presque County have a land bank before they utilized it?
I believe they started back in 2017.
It's 16 or 17 when Bridget established the land bank, and they've just become active.
So, not to, spill all their beans, but they have a project now that's viable, which is going to be the Grand Ball Center. And we're going to be working with them to stabilize the Grand Ball Center while another developer looks to develop and do that property. They would not have had that opportunity had they not had their land bank. And again, they were inactive from 2016 until now, waiting. And she's right, there's not funding every year for land banks. We are working, we're educating our legislators that this is a good tool to get blight out of community, to lower crime rates, not have the stash house. Yes, Alpena, regardless if you believe it, there are some places in here that I will drive you and take you. Like, there's some crime going on in that house, okay? So we can believe that, no, not in our community. Yes. So getting some of these properties that are really blighted, getting some of these properties that could be used to develop and raise some property values of other people in the community, I do believe is important. And like I said, you don't have to be active. You can just accept it and put it on the books and then wait for a sweet opportunity that comes, like Bridget Malone did in Presque, and they waited 6 years. So an opportunity fell in their laps with this opportunity.
Anybody got any questions for Lenny?
Thank you, sir.
No worries.
Thanks, Lenny. So I've been looking for a motion to adopt this resolution. I'm not going to read it all because it's.
It's that big.
Intergovernmental agreement?
Yeah.
As far as the resolution's done.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Konashevsky, support.
I'll support.
By Commissioner LaHaye. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Sorry. Commissioner Francisco?
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye.
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer. Commissioner LaLonde.
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Okay, we're all set, Lenny.
All right, I'm going home, your dad. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports of special ad hoc committees, facilities, capital, and strategic planning. Travis.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Yeah, I clicked off that thing for 1 second. Oh my gosh.
You're like me, I'll have 5 things open.
Yeah. Can you come back to me, Bill?
Yeah, I'll come back. Course of public safety, John.
I'm sorry, hang on a second.
Oh, my gosh.
So most of the stuff was in the meeting, the minutes. The big thing, and I'm not going to even get into it, but I think I keep saying the same thing, but no one's listening. With the animal control, I have not said I'm shutting it down. But we had a long debate about, moving forward. And I think one of the big things that, and again, when we originally started this back in February, we wanted to be able to find out how to better improve the animal control. And I think we have a start because even though they're verbal policies don't cut it when you're supposedly have the best policies to date. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to get the policies for the animal control moving forward, and then we'll just go step by step and see where we end up with that.
On that note, John, I appointed an ad hoc committee of John, Bert, and Brenda, and to work with the county sheriff and Sheriff Reed, get these policies and procedures in line. And once we get them in, we can move forward from that. And it might be 6 months, it might be a year, but that's where we're starting.
Well, and I think if we look at least this is my opinion, if we look at other, and we even, I think at one point said something about, what are these, other shelters doing that, make them stand out? What kind of policies do they have? We can reach out to them. I don't think we're going to develop policies from scratch. You look at, I can't imagine that, there's a number of animal shelters within the state that we couldn't reach out and find some policies that already exist and then and make some improvements and tweak them to how we think that they would fit for Alpena, but that's where we're going to start.
So you have had some discussion about animal control.
At the meeting, and then Eric's out of town this week. He's at a conference or whatever.
Yeah, I read what he said.
Yeah, so we'll get with him when he gets back, and then we'll try to schedule something.
He has a number of boilerplate, as you talked about, benchmarking with other agencies, and he's started to reach out and has received some of those. So I think after we get a chance to meet, we should be able to move forward rather quickly.
Yep.
Okay, Beth, back to you.
Did I delay it long enough for you?
No. Okay.
Jesse?
Jesse?
You're good.
See, we do have the department head handbook is going to probably be completed, I would assume, next personnel meeting. We only had a couple small items that need to be addressed, so we'll have that updated and hopefully voted out. I know one topic that came up was the fact that we did make a motion, which did pass on the last consent agenda last meeting for a change in insurance brokers. Is that the proper term, right, Catherine? It's a broker.
Agent.
I know there was, I'm not sure if we had a lot of discussion at that meeting, but I can tell you during the meeting that we had, there were just a lot of concerns with the service that we've been receiving. And I think, in our positions, cost savings and efficiency, and what we found were some of our well, our HR director and I know also our county clerk has spent a considerable amount of their own time trying to have to track down answers when after weeks, if not, I think up to 2 months, I think is what Jennifer May said, trying to find an answer for something that they just could not get a response from. In our positions, I think as elected officials, we again have to look for what's cost saving and efficient. And I think we also have to, we're in a unique position where we're elected, but we're also helping serve our fellow elected officials, such as Carrie's office, where, they have a lot going on and they can't spend hours trying to chase down the answers. So we did make that change, and I think it was for the best for the time being. Other than that, there were both items that Mary Catherine was working with as far as negotiations and discussions with some of our unions, which I think we'll probably dive into more the next meeting. I'll have a better update. I don't think, can I really discuss that?
We do have closed session on the agenda.
Okay, economic development, basically, that's what we talked about with Lenny and Mary Catherine today on the land bank, what we're working at right now. So that'll be moved forward.
And I did get on that webinar today, but I did not complete my mission because I could see them, but I couldn't hear them. And for some reason, my speaker in my laptop wasn't picking up on the Zoom meeting. So I quickly tried to download Zoom, but I still failed. I could see them and I could see her moving her lips. Say again?
Zoom or Teams?
On Zoom.
I was at Teams at 11 o'clock.
This was through Senator Peters' office. Okay, this was Senator.
Different ones.
Yeah. And I mean, I tried, but I did not, I could see them, I could see their lips moving. I knew they were talking, but I couldn't hear. And a couple of times I hit some buttons on there and I guess they were hearing me, but I wasn't hearing them and they kept muting me off. So they've learned some new military language that you don't normally hear in those kind of meetings, I guess. But anyway, I failed my mission on that webinar today. So I'll follow up with them though to see if I can get at least a copy of what they were going to send out or talking about.
Facilities?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
Not a whole lot that we really discussed of major importance. It sounds like our tenants are finally moving into the 7-Eleven building in relatively short order. Most of those repairs are done. We have a lease signed. So that's good. We're glad to hear that moving forward after a long period of renovation. Fair board, we talked with the fair board about they're going to put some fence up over there. Again, nothing really major. We did talk a lot about the power bill. The annual power bill at the fairgrounds is based on really the whole week of the fair. It really significantly drives the cost up for the whole year. So they're going to look into the demands that they have during Fair Week and see if they can rent a generator that would offset that and, make their monthly power bill a lot closer to reality. So I'm waiting to hear back from Mike Arthur on that. The action item for the home improvement, we're going to discuss that at this meeting. Is there an action that we need to deal with on that?
That's on our new business.
Okay, all right. So we can talk more about that in a little bit. Really, I think that it's really about it in the grand scheme of things. Nothing major. We're going to go over.
Okay, thanks. That was commission reports or other board commissions. DHD 4.
I'm going to go ahead and do DHD 4.
Okay.
Obviously, most of it was covered. There was a couple other things that wasn't covered. I mean, she did such a beautiful job covering most of it. They did talk about rabies. Rabies bites is a big concern right now. There was free HIV testing today. And then also on the 29th, there is going to be the emergency preparedness with the CRTC and the FAA, the flight emergency landing scenario. The health department did express interest in coordinating with that project. They thought they could be, they wanted to. They thought they would be helpful with like reunification with family, but they also talked about that they would partner with local behavioral health entities and provide support in case that kind of situation ever came about. So, but other than that, that's about everything from DHD4.
Okay. Current board you talked about, Travis? Okay. North Michigan counties, northeastern Michigan.
Yeah, I haven't attended one of those meetings yet.
Okay.
So.
Moa landfill, I'll take that. Kim will be happy to check. Probably be here next month for the allotment from the landfill, 125,000.
Mid-July is
Yeah.
usually, it's still,
We're trying to-
that's still on plan. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a bunch of big bills, so you're holding off on that. That's
125, correct?
correct. And again, we're just waiting for the final work to be done on the injection well, which has been dragging on a couple of months longer than we thought. So that is moving forward. Northeast Michigan Consortium, Mr. Malone.
There is a meeting. I was just looking when there was a meeting. I believe there is a meeting late fall, early like winter. I'll be attending and I'll have a update for you at that time.
Sure. NMMMA, Mr. Francisco.
So the NMMA meets the fourth Thursday of the month. And I guess the biggest news is that the material recovery facility known as the MRF, is still on planned on the 2-year plan. So they're on target. The engineering site plan is being worked right now with a planned startup of the second quarter of 2025. So I'll give you a more thorough report next month. But so NEMCOG meets the second Thursday of the month. 2 things out of NEMCOG. One was again, the statewide septic tank code legislation. That's an area of concern for a number of the counties and municipalities that meet through NEMCOG. But there is NEMCOG's working on a $175,000 grant from the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development for Alpena County. It's a rural housing preservation grant to rehab low-income, single-family, owner-occupied houses in Alpena. So that's a grant that they're pretty confident that we're going to be able to get for our housing project here in Alpena. Nothing further.
Okay, thanks. Parks, Bill?
The parks are all up and running and everything is going pretty good. The balance sheet for 6/30/23, total assets $586,323.47. Liabilities $2,196.41 and end fund balance of $584,127.06. The 3 parks are running, and Beaver Lake Park is ahead for June by $630. Sunken Lake Park is down $5,489, and Long Lake Park is up $8,090.
Good. Solid waste management. I just saw that email come through from them. In September, once they've finalized the plans, we'll have 180 days to implement the plan, update our plan and put a new plan into effect.
No, we have 180 days to submit our MOU to the state of Michigan saying we intend to plan. They've actually given us 2 years to plan, which I'm very pleased about.
And I've been talking with, if there's more grant money available, the more counties you have. And I've talked to Montmorency and Oscoda counties, and because they're part of the landfill. And it seems logical for us to work with them, get one plan for the 3 or 4 counties, even get Presque Isle in there. Get 4 counties into that plan. And grant money to be available, or you get higher rating for having 4 counties more than 1 county. So we're working on that. Thunder Main Marine Sanctuary, Commissioner Osborne.
Yeah, so.
Nothing?
No, I have an update. Just unfortunately, the first meeting they ever had was during a blizzard, so they canceled it. The second one, I was in North Carolina. But I do have an update. So last week they did have robots and AI devices that were diving to look for shipwrecks. I don't know the outcome of it yet, but that did occur. And then also for those of you who are interested, if you missed the giant rubber ducky last year, it's coming back.
Yes.
So July 21st to the 23rd, they're actually going to be combining the Thunder Bay Marine Maritime Festival and the Festival of Sail. Last year, if you remember, there was a charge, and this year it's going to be free, which is kind of cool. Tall ships, music, kids stuff will all be there again this year. So, yeah, I was doggy sitting in Gala last year when the rubber ducky was here, so I'm excited.
Big duck. Good, thanks, yes. Thunder Bay Transportation, Travis?
Nothing really new there. Relatively consistent. They got a couple of new vans last quarter. Nothing to share really there.
Okay, good. Special orders, do we have any special orders, Mary Catherine?
Not that I'm aware of.
Finished business, this was added, Lappin Insurance for Brenda.
Yes, I wanted to bring that up. First off, I'll take the blame not bringing it up when we had it on the consent calendar. My computer wasn't working, and I didn't read the consent on it. But I did get a phone call from Mr. Lappin, and I can understand how he felt when this all took place. But I feel as though the board should have been informed, and we should have talked about it and asked Mr. Lappin to attend to find out just exactly what did happen, give him an opportunity. He did tell me that he knows there was mistakes. He said he'll own them, but he just wanted that chance.
I guess
I felt as though, you know, usually when we switch insurance companies for the employees, it's brought to the board. And we talk about it, make a decision, vote on it. This was not. It's put in the consent calendar. I didn't read, and it was just approved. Matter of fact, I believe I was the one that made the motion. And I felt it was wrong. Talking to Mr. Lappin, yes, he told me there was mistakes. I understand that. But I said, normally we bring it to full board, and this was not. It's over, it's done. But I believe that personnel should bring things like this to full board. So all the commissioners know what's going on.
Well, it should be, if you read the consent.
I already know, I told you, I did not. Computer
That's why.
wasn't working. I was handed the packet when I walked in. So that is on me. I'll own it. But it still should have been brought to full board.
I'd like to add too, because he actually called me as well. One of the things that, you know, in my conversation with him was, and again, I literally said the reason that I decided that we needed to change, because like Bill had mentioned during the meeting, you know, we want to keep things local. Carrie had indicated some issues with them, and, you know, when I heard that there's multiple issues in different offices, there must be a problem here. During the conversation that I had with Mr. Lappin, one of the things that he had indicated that he had talked to Mary Catherine on, literally, I think, a couple of weeks ago, was moving forward. He told the same thing to myself, that he owned the mistake and they were working on it. But one of the things that he had indicated to me was that he had just literally discussed with Mary Catherine that he was working on better training for I think Jennifer, and other options that they were going to, and I think he actually even replaced the person that was the issue. So one of the concerns that I have with this was, and I guess I get a little frustrated, maybe like Brenda does, but when we only hear half of the story, because I think, and now looking back, I would have probably suggested, let's hear from the other side, but then I didn't do that. I did, you know, based on the information that was presented that day. And I'll tell you that I'm the first to say that, you know, I feel like we need to start doing a better job when it comes to the information. If we're not getting the whole package, we can be easily swayed, at least I feel that we can be easily swayed by the information that is presented. So, you know, again, it's at this point, I guess, maybe too late. One of the things that Mr. Lappin indicated to me was, even though that they did get bought out by Sterling, but they're still a local insurance agent that works in our community, which I didn't realize. I thought once Sterling bought them out that they weren't part of that group or whatever that would be doing the insurance. So again, you know, it's a little bit frustrating when, and I'm not saying that maybe if we had heard more from him, and the other thing, because I had suggested to him that come to the full board and present your side, ask for a time slot to come. And again, I know we made a decision, but at least it would have been nice to hear from his perspective, what happened and what were the issues and how he was going to correct that. And you told me that you said that he couldn't be part of this. So, I know that we had mentioned that before. If people are asking to come to the full board, I think we need as commissioners, I don't think it's good for one person to be making all those decisions. We need more information to be able to make informed decisions. So that's just what I have to say.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Kozlowski, for the lecture. I appreciate that. And,
It wasn't a lecture.
Okay.
I talked to John Lappin too, previous, and I thought this was going to come up at a full board meeting, but it came through on that hub thing, and I didn't understand what that was all about.
Yeah, so my point was going to be, we had the discussion where our staff expressed to us, and some of the committees run together, and so I apologize, I'm not sure exactly which one, but they expressed their frustration with our current agency, both HR and the county clerk's office. And then we had tabled it to another committee meeting, and we asked the hub representatives to come here, and they came in and presented. And then I believe it was personnel committee, and then that's when the vote was taken. So it wasn't like done in one particular meeting. It was over a couple of months period. So, but I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Kozlowski, but I just don't know what goes on the consent calendar in the future and what has to go before the whole board, what constitutes one or the other.
I think last year, not last year, or maybe it was last year, when we actually had Hub come in and present to the entire board.
Right, sure.
And so, I think that's where Commissioner Forney was saying that, it would have been nicer to at least present to the whole board, but, we did it, it's done. And at this point, learn from our mistakes, or at least I'll learn from my mistakes and then go from there.
Wasn't it last year when Hub was here? That's when
Yes.
we were going out for bids, correct? Now with Hub taking over from Lappin, it's the same insurance policy. It's just a different agent handling. They get paid the same.
Well, and it's not really
That's
a
not
matter
the
of
reason.
pay. It's like you had said when we talked about it in the meeting, I think that's originally when we didn't go with Hub because it was going to be able to keep it local.
Yes, they were in town. That wasn't the reason why I brought it up. It's because board was not informed the reasons why we were getting rid of Mr. Lappin, the Lappin Insurance. And usually it's brought to the board when we're gonna change insurance companies or who we're gonna change it to and get the opportunity to vote on it. And we were not given that opportunity. It was not brought to us. And I still don't know why you got rid of him. I know some, but not the full story. He was not here to give it to us. And Hub was here last year. We did listen to them. They are not from Alpena. They are not local. And we turned them down last year.
Do a lot of local business though.
And well,
So if I could just
Like
go ahead
anymore.
real quick.
Yeah.
So just, I want to make sure the timeline is fully understood here. So because I did see the email from Mr. Lappin, I did not get a phone call, which is kind of shocking, since I chaired the committee that made this decision to put this forth. But I will say that meeting took place on June 6th. The email is dated June 23rd, in which he refers to a conversation he had with Mary Catherine June 16th, 10 days after the decision was made. So even if he promised things after the fact, it already been put through. So I just make sure that everybody understands the timeline. But I will say with that, Brenda, I do apologize. I probably should be more conscious, and maybe that's something we can all be in our subcommittee meetings of items such as this that might be a little different. I'm still learning. It's my first year. So, maybe if there's certain items that are of particular interest that we feel might be worthy of the whole board kind of diving into a little bit more, we can make sure that's brought forth in the future. But so I apologize for that. That's on me. But just so you know, the timeline, there does make sense though.
Okay, anything else? Now we'll move on. New business. Any correspondence, Mary Catherine?
I did receive today the letter from Eagle in regards to the materials management planning, but I will forward that to everyone.
New business, discuss guidelines authorizing the facilities committee to approve home improvement project requests as they are presented. This was something that, when we were first on, we had a home improvement and we were getting requests. We were authorized to finish them. I brought this back up because, there's some time sensitive projects that need to be done in a hurry. And we're waiting a month for our board, full board to approve. You got 4 committee members sitting on there. I'd like to see it go back to that. The facilities can authorize those payments for those projects.
So you're looking for a motion for that?
Looking for a motion for that.
I'll make that motion for the
This
facility.
was recommended from Nikki too. She thinks it's a good idea too. So,
And it made sense to me, the scenarios that she explained.
yeah. So the motion by Commissioner Kozlowski, Konachevsky, or
You got a second?
no, you seconded Bill. Support by Commissioner Leahy. Discussion.
What were the examples or the information that you said?
There, shortly after a full board meeting last winter, one of her clients, if you will, for lack of better terms, had a furnace go out in the middle of the winter and they needed some pretty quick action. Couldn't really wait, another month or 2 weeks for a full board meeting to spend money that was kind of already allocated for that. And there was a couple instances that it was time sensitive stuff. Like a septic tank was collapsed. They couldn't use their facilities in their home. And again, these were things that the money was already allocated for. She just needed the approval to spend it on those certain projects.
So I get if it's at the committee level, but if the committee only meets once a month, then how does that improve anything?
Well, there was that was part of the
That's
discussion.
a committee, then we have to go to full board to get it, or ways and means.
Well,
Or
but
they could call a committee.
Or they can call it,
Right, we could call an emergency meeting. Bill could,
yeah.
to help expedite stuff for, the stuff that Nikki does.
If she can approve up to 15,000 right now by herself. This is for the bigger projects that happen, that you can see a septic tank goes out, drain field goes, it's pretty expensive in a hurry.
this is just given approval to spend the funding, the grant money that she already has.
She already has.
No additional monies, just money that she's already budgeted, and it's in there.
For discussion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer. Yes. Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco.
Yes.
Commissioner Konachevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Okay, we're going to go into closed session.
Did you want to talk about the commission you did
Already brought
bring in
that.
that report?
Okay, yeah.
Or that was just what you guys had.
That's informational. Say
Answer any
informational.
questions on it. And it looks like your board, the 3 members, all pretty much agree with each other when it comes to voting.
Well, overall, then that goes back to 2009.
Yeah.
Obviously, more recently, it looks like there's been 10 no's over the last 3 years.
Right.
Ryan, and I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but I was just kind of glancing at the number of board meetings. And I was just seeing like the number drop. Obviously 2023, you can't count because we're only halfway through the year. But I was, 23, 20, and then it looks like the meetings now are staying on an average around 17 or 18. Do you know why there's less meetings now?
They changed, back then, they had multiple meetings a month, correct?
Correct. It was 2 meetings a month. I don't know. Interestingly enough, I was researching a different subject and was looking in minute books from the mid-20s through into the late 40s, and was surprised to see that back then, they only met once a month. I didn't research when the change to twice a month was. But that was a reduction that was part of county board action.
Yeah, I think back in 2017.
I believe you're correct.
Once a month.
Correct.
Anybody else have questions, Ryan?
And the number of motions has gone down as well. I figured out the average. I don't know. It's caught my attention. Just feedback.
So I have a question for you, a loaded question. The young lady that spoke in the beginning, I actually received a phone call from her and a few of her neighbors that were here. I was waiting for them to speak as well. I've been down that road and I understand what she's talking about. Are there any resolutions for that? Do you have any thoughts of what can be done with that particular road or that particular stretch of road? Is it so dusty because it's newer gravel or because it's open and windy?
It's a combination of things. I was just talking to John, our soon-to-be new superintendent, and it's a common practice we've done when we've encountered this kind of thing. That does have a cleaner gravel mix on it. We've went to some of these areas before and added clay, actually spread clay in the road, mixed everything back up to get more binder back into that road. And that's one specific place he commented about doing that. You know, that's one option. We did just recently gravel that. That I believe came out of Rayburn. And when we crush in our Rayburn pit and Flanders, they're both really clean because there's not a lot of availability of silty clay material in them. But it is cost effective for us to use that material. We've put limestone on roads and sometimes we get into trouble. We can't cut them once we get limestone on them. So, you know, we recognize there's an issue with that. I mean, ultimately they're looking for a hard surface there, and that's a much larger discussion. You know, I'm glad you encourage them to come to our board, you know, so they can talk to our board about it. Some of the things that she relayed that she's been told are unfortunate. You know, I don't tell people move your house or build a hedge. You know, I sympathize with their situation, but you know, I try to just be factual with them on where we're at money-wise and the reality of it. I don't believe it was her I had talked to about that said, you know, this was never going to happen. I think it was a different resident I talked about. There's never a never. It's just money.
And I understand they are a long ways off of the nearest blacktop is Wolf Creek. I was looking it up on the maps and it's over a mile.
Yeah.
And, you know, past where they live, there's not a lot. There's only a couple more homes by the time you get to Briar Hill, and people are slowing down enough. That's quite a 90-degree uphill turn. So they're decelerating quite a bit before they get there. But maybe, you know, certainly if it's something that you could talk about with your people, I'm sure they're going to be calling and I'm certain they'll be at your next meeting. So,
And that's fine.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just think about maybe the clay option or maybe a couple of applications of chloride for them or something. I don't know.
We've had that discussion before. That is a double-edged sword because sometimes dusty conditions are perception. And there's no real good metric to gauge that by. So that being a primary road, that's our consideration, whether or not we're gonna put a second application on that. So say we do that, word gets out that we did that there, and maybe we've got another spot that's a lot better road, but that's always dusty to that homeowner. You know, now we're getting requests to do second applications all over. So
Sure.
It's a slippery slope. I'm not saying it's not an option.
I get it. The squeaky wheel gets you oil, and how many wheels we want to start squeaking? I understand that. Right?
How long from when a road is chloride, from when it's chlorided, is it usually effective for dust control? Is it usually like a couple months, or it depends on the weather, like how much rain there is, or?
humidity.
Humid. Okay.
One thing that really affects it, rain really helps us, but if we get a lot of rain, a road gets pounded out, we absolutely have to get in there and grade it.
My road is an example of that. Scott Road, the hill, every time a heavy rain,
Oh, yeah.
you guys are coming down there.
Yeah, and every time we touch that road, once there's dust control on it, we're diminishing.
Oh, I see.
So it's, the ideal conditions are we get the dust control down, we get it laid down nice, and we just have nice mild, humid summers where we don't have a baking sun and no moisture and no hold up all summer. But that's not happening right now.
Sure.
Right.
Fair enough, thanks.
Okay, anybody else for Ryan? Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for attending today, and hope I can't order for you on next meeting.
I was kind of surprised when I found out they were coming here, to be honest with you, because it's us they need to come to.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks. Closed session, we're going to go into closed session. Discuss some union grievances.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion by.
Thank you.
Support by Commissioner Konashevsky. All those in favor say aye.
I'll get the,
Opposed?
You got it.
yeah, I'll get the door because then I get to stand up.
The woman that spoke.
I'm gonna get a short recess.
I can start all that.
I'm gonna get a short recess.
No, we're gonna-
Pass these along. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I had taken these Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner, that's roll call, I think. Commissioner Osmer,
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Lalone. Here. Commissioner Fournier. Here. Commissioner Francisco.
Here.
Commissioner Konashevsky.
Here.
Commissioner Kozlowski.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here. Okay. We have
Open session.
open comment, I have public comment. State your name and your address, please.
Jerry MacArthur, I'm a county road commissioner, address 1555 Damage Road. I must say it's a little disappointing to come to a meeting to hear how disrespectful the road commission employees were to citizens. I went out and talked with them, people afterwards, and it's very disappointing what I heard. I did not come for that reason. The reason I come was number one, as a commissioner, I feel you are paying us way too much money. We make $750 plus mileage. We usually have one meeting a month. 2 or 3 times a year, we'll have 2. I am pressing that you increase the board number to 5 because we are unable to talk with other commissioners about anything. I know when I've talked to several of you are always talking to each other back and forth, but we're not allowed to do that. By adding the extra members, that would allow us to have a little conversation privately, so we would not have to ask embarrassing questions in front of public and stuff. And I think you would appreciate using that alternative also. The other thing, by adding 2 additional members to the board, hopefully we would get a little bit of increase in knowledge and experience and help the road commission solve some of the problems that we are following right now. And I know you've heard that the road commission seems to be working smoothly. But I think if you look at Aaron Road as an example, you would see that we have many issues. First of all, when you look at Aaron Road, you notice no grass growing on the side of the road. That's because there's no topsoil. There's also a dip on the north end on the south end of the project. It makes a dip in the road that shouldn't be there either. And then you get to the south end of the project where we have caution signs because the road is so rough. We have worked and tried to address the problems and stuff with this problem. And I have requested a lot of the paperwork and unannounced to the commission, a payment of $58,000 was made to the contract as an extra for sand that was hauled in. The commission did not, all we voted for was to pay the bill for the remaining contract amount. We were not told about the $58,000 extra cost. And digging into the paperwork, I found that the $58,000 payment is not justified by anything. And the paperwork that was supplied is garbage. None of it is accurate. It's not even in the right locations. I filed a FOIA request to make sure I got all the paperwork. And to date, no documentation provided by the road commission authorizes that payment. The contractor has provided payment, but we have no documentation of that whatsoever. Another problem the road commission is having is we are no longer getting bids on a lot of our projects. We've always had trouble receiving 1 or 2 bids. Lately, we've down 1 bid. And the last project that we did was to resurface or to cut out the asphalt on Aaron Road, and we didn't receive any bids. So the bidding process that we do, I've commented several times that we're not following the laws of the state of Michigan because we don't advertise properly. And I know I've been in contact with the other counties around us, and they're doing a much better job at receiving bids. So I don't know how it's fair to the public when we only receive 1 bid, if any. Sometimes we've been contracting work with no bids and no contracting. So that's why I'm pushing to get 2 new members on the board so that we can function as a board and maybe we can help fix some of these problems.
Next year. Thank you. Anything else coming for the board?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Osmer. Second? I'll second. By Commissioner Lefferts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.